Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Sonictalk episode 750. Oh gosh, I've written it down somewhere. Is it 53? I think it's 53. Yes, that's what it says on the screen. This is a music technology podcast. We talk about all things to do with the world of music tech, recording, performing, studio, playing live, all kinds of stuff, live streaming, anything that kind of works to that end and that ecosystem. So it's software, synthesizers, hardware, all kinds of stuff. And I wanted to just say, actually, before we start, I will mention you may have seen that the show's dedicated to Louise Spears, who sadly passed away. Me and Gaz both went to her funeral yesterday. It was a lovely day, and obviously very sad. But our thoughts go out to Dave and his family, and I'm sure he'll be back with us at some point soon. Anyway, so I wanted to say thank you, everybody. Thanks to Wagyu in the chat. Obviously, we've got, for those of you who haven't been here before, if you've got a question for us in the panel, just type a comment, either YouTube, Facebook, or have I switched it on? Yes, or Twitch, that's right, or IRC, or the YouTube comments. If you start it with QQ, it means that it will show up and I can link it, and maybe we'll get around to answering it, although we do have a number of topics this week. I also want to say thank you very much to our Patreoners for supporting this show. It really does help, and the entire channel. While we do have show sponsors, they are harder to come by these days, so if you want to see and support us going forward, it's much appreciated. I'll play you this little plug just so you can, it's a little bit out of date, it didn't record a new one, but I'll let you decide for yourselves. Hey, have you considered joining us on our Patreon? We've got a whole bunch of stuff there. In fact, there's quite a lot of extra content going to be coming up from our recent EMOM, as well as the Backstage tour, which I've already posted up. I know many of you are interested in that. We've got sequential trigon extra sounds. We've got some sample sets from previous reviews. All our stuff that goes up to YouTube is also posted ad-free, so you don't have to look at the ads, and that's at a basic level as well. So if you want to join us, just head over to patreon.com/Sonicstate. You can join us at $2.50 a month for the ad-free stuff. If you want to join us at the upper tier, $5.50 a month, an absolute bargain. And you'll also get all that extra stuff. And if you join us before the end of the show, your name will appear in the end credits. Thanks for listening. Back to the show. Oh, that's very meta. I introduced the handover, and I think that works extremely well. Looks like we've got kind of a low bit rate coming out of the building. I hope it's going to be all right. But anyway, we'll soldier on. After last week's technical mess up, I'm hoping to make it a little bit more slick this week. And I'll try and do that by introducing Gaz in a sort of slick handover fashion, because Gaz is our guest this week. How are you, Gaz? You doing all right?
I'm very good. Thank you very much. And happy to be here, of course.
Yes, excellent. Well, Gaz, of course, bass player and music technologist. Are you an occasional streamer? Are you streaming tonight or soon, or via your YouTube channel?
Maybe I could do it tonight. Yeah, why not?
It's not a challenge. You don't have to.
No, I will do it tonight. I've been meaning to start back up, and I think because I'm on today, I think that's a good reason to do it. And I've got bags of stuff that I want to cover. So, yeah, I'll be on 8 p.m. GMT tonight. And so, yeah, please join me I'd like to think of it as a bit of the Sonic after show party.
Yeah, that sounds like a very reasonable suggestion. Okay, well, yes, please do. For those of you who kind of keeping up on these things, I was just trying to have a look what we've got coming up. I need to get my screen up and I can show you. I've done that. Well, obviously, it's really sad news. There seems to be a lot of it about, but sad news about Ryuichi Sakamoto, of course, who passed away. Not unexpected. I know he was he was a professional smoker for his entire life. So these sort of things are inevitable in that. Like a lot of Japanese people of a certain era, there's just smoking was a really big part of their lives. But Yellow Magic Orchestra, obviously the work he did with David Sylvian in Japan, and so much more. If you don't get the chart, if you haven't seen it yet, he did a performance of Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, just on the piano late last year, so quite recently, and it is one of the most emotive and beautiful pieces of playing I've seen for a really long time. So please do check it out and listen to him and be thankful of all of his great work. But yes, sad, and obviously, all the people that I met him once actually, but wow. It was a very weird experience. But maybe I'll bring that up a little bit later. And what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, I was hoping to get the Groove Synthesis third wave review out before NAMM. And unless I do it tomorrow, which might be difficult because I've really got to get all the NAMM stuff organised as I'm going, it may not come out until after NAMM. So I do apologise if you've been waiting for that. But I can tell you it sounds really good. But yes, that's I suppose that's where I was going. But yeah, so what have you been up to? What have you got going on, Gaz? Anything exciting?
Well, I've been performing quite a lot.
You played Coventry, didn't you? Yeah, that's right.
Yes. So we've got a little video about that that'll be that's nearly ready. So yeah, gigging under my bad workman moniker. Really enjoying it now. I feel that it's something that I'm starting to fuse my normal performance self into this.
Wise move, I would say, Gaz, to be honest. Why restrain yourself? Utilize your that's your magic sauce that you've got, that lots of people certainly in the modular world don't have, because they're not built that way, whereas you do. So you should use it.
You are cool, and I think it's been like a journey, which many people, I'm guessing, tuned in will have sort of caught little bits of my journey over the last few years. I more or less started that modular journey in the first lockdown or thereabouts, and it's taken me places I never would have thought. But I think the key element there is that I'm just really enjoying it now. I feel that I'm able to express myself. Still not exactly making complete music. It's still quite fragmented. My approach is quite sort of, I don't ever stick on anything long enough, and I do realise that is a bit frustrating for people listening. When I perform with Steve Davis, that's one of the things that's really nice, that I really enjoy working with him, is that he likes to be much more zen and calm and evolving slowly over time, where I'm very, very kind of scribbly. And so actually bring that together and you get a good combination of things. Because when you get two scribbly people together, you kind of get like the performance I did with Sam Battle at Mum No Computer in Norwich recently. But just finding it really enjoyable and at times really surprising. I know that many of you out there are not hugely interested in modular, and some, many of you also are, but it's just been really interesting for me finding a voice or finding a pathway that connects and excites me, and takes me to places that I just simply would never have got to using any of the other means that I had prior to that.
I think there's a certain amount of because the well-trodden path. You must find it on the bass. You always reach for the same finger position, the same intervals. Because it's a very familiar thing. As well as being fluent on it, it's harder to stretch yourself when you're on a well-trodden path, because it's like you always sort of tend to go towards the destination that you usually do, whereas with modular sometimes it's just like, oh my god, I don't know what's happening. You have to you have to hold on to a degree, so you don't know where it's going necessarily. So it's a different.
I have to thank Steve Davis in a way for kind of encouraging me to get away from using a keyboard. When I started my modular sort of journey, I was using a MIDI keyboard to trigger the sounds, and that was kind of keeping me sort of connected to what I already was, and exactly what you're saying. The scales and riffs and that were familiar to me. But when you get into kind of controlling waveform, controlling voltages and being able to sculpt voltages, it's it definitely takes you into different realms. But I'm really interested in music, in applying music theory kind of things to modular, and I've got a few modules I'm exploring.
Nice. Sort of mathematically and system wide. So
and harmony. Like having really interest in harmony and then modulating the harmony. Using very, very slow LFOs, and trying to find ways to key change everything as well, like actual proper musical key changes. Really difficult.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, interesting. Well, while we're on the subject, actually, I should mention that there's the EMOM Dates, which I'm trying to kind of do a little bit more. If you're interested in seeing that, there are EMOM events all over the place now. And if you go to that page, you'll be able to find out what's coming up next. Selway, there's something tonight at the Chambers Folkestone. There's also another one, which is in Sowerby Bridge, West Yorkshire. So, yeah, do check out that URL. And because the thing about the EMOM thing is it doesn't all have to be modular at all. It can be, you could just be you and an effects pedal and a synth you like. There's and we find it really does encourage you. Speaking of which, we will actually be bringing up. We're working on our next EMOM, and if you're interested in performing, go to. Actually, I'll post this in the chat links because it's probably easier. This is the link to. I haven't. Hold on. HTTP. I'll type it in because I should have actually made it. So it's bit.ly/Sonic Performer. I think that's right. So yeah, use that link, which will have gone in the various chats. If you want to sign up for this or any of the next ones coming up, we are getting kind of a good roster of acts. So yes, please do. Right, I suppose we should get onto some topics, shouldn't we? Because I mean, we always say this, don't we? Because it's like, we worry that there's only two guests. We might not have enough to talk about. And look, it's already 15 minutes in, and we haven't actually covered any news apart from not bad news, sad news. So let's get on to some other news, shall we? So the first one I'm going to go for is this one was kind of interesting. I really like the UI on this. This is called I think it's called Piastrone or Piastrone. I'm not quite sure. It's a great UI for an Ableton Reverb. It's playable reverb, and it's just got some really nice UI ideas. And I just thought it sounded quite interesting as well, which is quite apt because there's a certain amount of lexicon vibe about some of this stuff with those little short tickly delays, and of course the Arturia LX224 has come out as well. But I just thought this was kind of cool, and it's all modulatable and stuff. And I think with reverbs, we're often presented with these kind of really cryptic UIs with loads of kind of unfamiliar parameters, and I just thought this was a pretty good one. I've just realised I haven't written any facts about it. I don't know how much it is or who did it. That's really stupid of me. That's one of the show notes.
It's super cheap. It's 20 euros, I think.
There we go.
Yeah. One thing that makes this really, really nice is that you can modulate the parameters and it will sound really good. As I'm sure many of you are aware, when you try to modulate reverb parameters, especially size,
they can get glitchy, yeah,
clicking and unpleasant glitching. So this sounds really nice to sort of modulate and to it's a live, an Ableton Live device only. I should mention that.
Yes.
But it's kind of based
I'm fairly sure someone's going to nick an idea from that, though, because it's got some nice UI smarts in it.
Yeah, definitely. And the link that you sent through from Create Digital Music is a very interesting article that I'd recommend people read, because that led me off on a real rabbit hole earlier. It references I think it was a paper or an article that was created in 1997 about how to create digital effects that I think many people who work in DSP have used. And I started reading it, and it is fascinating. So so links are on Create Digital Music. But that, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? With Reverb, it's one of the most powerful musical effects that you have in your arsenal, and yet it is a very careful balancing act to get it right, because if you really can kill things with too much verb. Typically, with a lot of the productions that I work on, I think I used to slather things in Reverb in the past, but in more recent times, I've been I've been very judicious with reverb,
Yeah.
and really, and I think people
Whereas I
forget
haven't at all. I'm the opposite.
If you're working on a complex mix, though, it's interesting to use reverb as
Yeah.
a means of positioning in the sound stage. And the more reverb, the further back it is, the less reverb, the further, more to the front, the sound becomes. And I seldom use more than minus 15 dB sort of on a reverb send. That seems to be just around there. That just seems to be the sweet spot for making the reverb do its thing, but without you consciously hearing it.
Interesting.
But many of us, sorry, after you.
I was just going to say, because I was thinking about this, about how there's an innate, almost like a kind of human subconscious attraction to large reverberant things, and I think it comes down to, in the history of music, these spaces were built, churches, caverns, cathedrals, concerts, they were built to be impressive sonically, as amongst many other things, as well as being an amazing kind of testament to, or in praise of whatever, insert whatever deity you fancy. They have they support any of the music or any of the things that were said or spoken or sung in them with this kind of amazing space and making them sound ethereal. And they influence, so much classical music and early choral music is designed to be in a specific space. And it's really interesting because I obviously work with the Moog Orchestra, and when they play, they try and do, everyone has a point source, and it's all about the room. You don't want to build the room. The thing I did with them in Bristol, which was for the Model D, the room was the star of the show. I had a Blumlein pair like 16 feet in the air, and that was basically most of the sound, because it was such a great sounding space. So all of these things were sort of composed with that in mind, and that. So I think there's obviously a sort of at a kind of primal level, we respond well to reverberant spaces. It sort of does something. Which I'm sure there's a paper on it somewhere, but I couldn't tell you what the facts are.
When I was in Paris back in 2013, I was fortunate enough to go to a number of concerts of the great organist, sadly no longer with us, Jean Guillou, and in Saint-Eustache Cathedral, right in the centre of Paris, and he was an absolute genius musician. He'd protege of Olivier Messiaen, and he'd been the organist, I think, at Saint-Eustache since 1964, this beautiful big cathedral, and he'd modified the organ to his in 1989 to his specific
wow, that's some clout, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And what was absolutely amazing, I had this realization when I was listening, watching him, was just how much he knew the acoustics. So much so, like when he's playing those bass notes, and those bass notes were really deep sub bass notes, but he would do these short bass notes that he knew the exact reverb times, so he could play.
So the tempo would be defined, right? Oh, wow, amazing.
I kind of realized he wasn't just playing the organ, he was playing the building.
Wow.
And it was probably one of the most amazing musical experiences of my life, witnessing him playing that. But just really using that reverb in such a creative way, it was just astonishing, really.
Nice. Fascinating stuff. The Piastrone reverb for live, very affordable and worth checking out. I mean, obviously there's quite a lot of reverbs. I did mention the Arturia LX24, which is a clone of, or an homage, shall we say, to the Lexicon 224, which actually Mark mentioned that he saw that coming up, and he was saying that the thing about the 224 is it wasn't just the DSP in it. There was something about the A to D and the D to A that made everything sound amazing. So I don't think they've gone to that level, because that would be an insane amount of details. So they've obviously gone for the algorithmic stuff and added some extra things, or they may have actually done it but I didn't realise that it had a sound. Just putting something through it without any reverb would really sound a certain way. But these were all effects that were outside of my scope of my pay grade, I think, at the time that they're about. But lovely thing. Okay, well, actually, maybe let's just do. I'm going to try and get the ads right this time, and I want to say, obviously, we've got Gaz with us, musician and music technologist. But I'll just have a quick mention of our friends over at Baby Audio. So hang tight. Yep, they make creative audio effect plugins designed to add colour and depth to your mixes. They won Plugin of the Year 2021 in Future Music and Computer Music magazine and have been nominated in the SOS Awards 2 years in a row. Try iHeart New York too. Easy to use parallel compressor for the typical New York sound. Mixture of powerful, transparent, high ratio compression. EQ and adaptive low end filter. Do you want to save 15% with the code ST15 on any of their plugins? Head to babyaudio.com, and once again we thank them there for their support. That was a new thing because I've been listening to a lot to other podcasters, and what they do is they reintroduce the panel before they do the ads, and I thought I'd try that, but then there's only one of you, so it doesn't quite have the same effect. So, but I didn't. At least I didn't mess it up. Hey, I could tick that box. That's fantastic. So what's next? I don't know how you feel about this. Actually, I'd be interested because I know you've played this place. So this is win a headline gig at Green Man. Green Man has become. I mean, it was a very alternative festival, wasn't it? It's sort of off the beaten track, but it's become extremely popular. It's actually now quite hard to get a ticket, let alone a gig there. And this is a competition. They do it every year, apparently, and it just seems to have more resonance because obviously there's going to be a bigger audience. So it's sort of like a battle of the bands, and you win essentially I don't know if it's a headline. I don't know if it's a Friday or a Saturday night, but you will win a gig there, which means you'll get a couple of tickets and pass, and you get to play. I don't know if you get paid or anything, but I don't know. It's really hard with festivals, isn't it? Because you sort of want to be involved at some level, but many festivals run on this very lean financial model, which is essentially paying almost no one unless they absolutely have to. And so I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, in a way, this seems like quite a good idea because it will, bring some more acts in as well.
Well, it's on the Green Man Rising stage. I've played at most Green Man festivals, or if not played, I've been at most of them. It's Wales's premium music festival, really, and it's been, it's a fantastic festival. One of the things that's great about that particular festival is the lack of corporate sponsorship. You just don't see any of that, and the bars are great. They're all provided for by different Welsh breweries and alcohol makers.
Is there a Brains bar there?
No. Oh God, no. Brains would probably be still a bit too corporate, really. See some much more catering to much more artisans.
And probably too strong.
But it's a lovely festival that I really recommend. It's but this has been something they've run for many years, though, and there is a stage called the Green Man Rising stage, and so
that makes sense,
you get to play on this. So this Rising stage is all about showcasing new and upcoming acts. And I think it's been really, a really popular and successful thing. At least 10 years, I think they've been doing this. So I think in this particular case, this is something that is, a tried and sort of tested approach to doing stuff. But you're right, though. I mean, festivals are they are quite a weird thing in themselves. That from an artist point of view, unless you're playing, unless you're really high up the bill, it can be quite a slog. Glastonbury Festival, for instance, just getting your kit across the stage, getting it to the stage can be a enormous effort. But they are an incredibly unique thing to do, to perform at festivals, and I'm sure many of you have done and will concur. But I think in particular, though, Green Man is worth giving a lot of praise to, really, because I think the way that they do it is there's a lot. They don't necessarily go for sort of like the most obvious or commercial pop possibilities. There's a very strong sort of artistic element to the acts, and so I think this is quite good in that it does give opportunities to acts who are different or are really trying to do something new or doing something that isn't particularly easily pigeonholable. But it's going to be like British festivals are going to see a big change in recent coming up now.
No European acts at all.
Well, American acts. Typically, there's been this thing in Britain where American acts have been coming over here, taking all our gigs. But there has been a very I can't say the word. Disproportionate, thank you. Disproportionate cost for the visas. American acts could come over, and they've been able to come here and play. I think it's been something like 50 quid a visa per member. Whereas going over to America,
oh gosh, yes, they've changed it, haven't they? They've changed it. Yeah, it's really hard.
They've now just changed it, so American act is going to make it really, really expensive for American acts to come over. Lots of American acts who have become well known in America kind of came over to Britain first, got a load of press and coverage in Britain, and then went back, and then that kind of elevated them. So I don't know if that pathway is going to be.
Oh, it's disappointing. There's a lot. There's a lot going on with that. Actually, I mean, it's weird as we sort of all our borders seem to shrink, and we fear newcomers. It's sort of applying to the arts is a really bad idea. So I know that this is happening certainly since Brexit. There's been a lot of difficulties with acts now getting. If you want to play, I was talking to Darren from Underworld last night, yesterday, who we met, and he said he used to DJ a lot in the UK, in Europe, as part of the sort of Underworld crew and in his own right. And now it's really if you go, you have to be informally invited. Then they withhold 20% of your fee. Then you've got to wait 90 days, apply for this, that, and the other. Then you go back to the promoter, and then the promoter will release the 25%. It's just so incredibly complicated. I think so. This is inevitably going to start to see. We're going to see more virtual events, aren't they? Because if you can't see them live, you're going to be able to see them streaming, and that obviously won't be. Which I guess is a good thing. So we're well placed with EMOM. Maybe we'll be riding that wave. I don't know, but yeah, it's sad. Those experiences are going to be hard. I mean, you're only ever going to be able to see, I don't know, insert mega band, and it's going to cost you 200 quid for a ticket because their touring costs are going to be so expensive.
It is sad. And I mean, festivals are brilliant, particularly for getting to see lots of acts, to sample lots of acts that you wouldn't ordinarily get the chance to see. So it's really sad if there's going to be less international stuff going on. But yeah, it's. I always wanted it to be the other way. I wanted the extortionate costs of American visas to come down. I wanted it. That's what I wanted. So it was easier to get over to the States to play. But sadly, it's the other way around.
Yeah. Protectionists, it goes ebbs and flows. It's just a sort of policy type. Anyway, we should probably. I try not to stray into politics. It isn't really politics. It's more policy, which is different, I suppose. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's jump on to another topic. And this is an interesting one. So this is the new Neumann entering the audio interface market.
Neumann.
This is actually
the leading manufacturer of studio microphones and is becoming a global reference in monitoring too. Neumann is synonymous with great sound, but so far the portfolio only covered the front end and rear end.
I'll fast forward. He goes on about Neumann products. Here it is. This is the MT-48,
famous among audio professionals for some of the best sound.
It's based on Swiss technology. The company are I'm sure I wrote some more notes on this. Oh yeah, I haven't updated it. It'll come in a second. It's really interesting. I mean, I think Neumann. This is made by a Swiss company for them, and they've kind of branded it and specified it. It's got extremely high resolution Still, my notes are still. Here we go. Yes, it's got 136 dB range. It's merging technology, a Swiss company. They've still priced it. It's about £2,000, so it's not cheap. It's also got a fan in it, I noticed. It's got 2 headphone outputs with the low impedance, high gain, AS67, so you can run it. But Neumann have recently, their monitors, I think they're called the KH310s, because we've had some really nice monitors here for a while. Silas, the guy who was came to listen to them and thought they were great, these were the Graham Audio ones. He was also raving about the Neumanns, and I went over to Newton Park, where he's the tech there, and I saw them, and their studio monitors, they're still quite expensive, £2,000 each, but people are saying they sound absolutely amazing. So I'm guessing, the Neumann are obviously entering in, rather than like SSL and Audient, who are kind of trying to get these lower cost, but sort of brand association. They're just going for the keeping it real, keeping it, high end. This looks quite interesting. I mean, I think, the 136 dB range is astonishing, really. And and it's got a USB-C interface, and it still costs about £2,000. I don't know. This looks like it could be, if you had digital monitors and you could just plug them in, and or you're using this looks like it could be an interesting thing. I mean, they're generally not that exciting, I realise, audio interfaces, but fill your boots, Gaz. See how you can.
Well, so I have heard those Neumann monitors, and they are exceptionally good, and I'm a huge fan of Neumann microphones, although I sadly don't own any, but every time I've used them for many, many years, and there's always this beautiful musicality to Neumann products. So this makes complete sense. And as the guy was saying there, with them having monitors and microphones, having the bit in the middle does kind of make a lot of sense. And, with that Neumann branding on there, you're going to be in for top quality. So the price point is interesting, because it's almost
it's a desktop interface, isn't it? I mean,
I remember when Apogee launched their various ones, which were maybe 4 times as expensive as equivalent ones in terms of feature set, and now this one is like twice or 3 times as expensive, maybe 4 times as expensive as other ones. However, it's one of those things, though. It's such an important part of a studio setup. That kind of investment, especially if you're working professionally, after you've got one, used one for a while, and you're not going to regret that money, I don't think, because you could be, the confidence that you'll have of having that, knowing that you've got that side of things sorted, that there's not really anything better than that actually goes a long way in terms of confidence inspiring. But it does look like a really nice unit to use, with a mixture of hardware buttons and touchscreen.
Yeah, there's a lot of touchscreen stuff, actually. Yeah, just looking at this, I'm just trying to see what the actual. So it's got. Oh gosh, it's got 2. I mean, it's got 2 mic amps plus ADAT. So it's pretty.
Exactly.
I mean, we're talking. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess we're talking in the region of, you might buy an API 500 series or a Neve 19-inch rack, which would just have 2 mic preamps. We're talking that sort of level of cost, but with obviously all that additional functionality. Yeah, so it's pretty audio.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is expensive for what it is. However, to reiterate that thing, you just, that kind of confidence that you'll get from it. A friend of mine bought a Prism interface a few years back, and I was trying to go, well, you're paying a lot of money there, but for him, I think it was that thing, just so he knew he had a standard there. So I think that does have validity. This particular unit, though, I mean, I think the ergonomics are really nice. I mean, that kind of sort of champagne gold look sort of just does kind of give it plenty of bling factor. But I tell you what, though, there is something very, very annoying about it, and that is it's got MIDI on 1/4-inch jack.
Oh, come on, 1/4-inch jack. What the hell?
I know. So it's just like, oh God, we've finally accepted that MIDI on, 8-inch jack or, the 3.5 millimeter MIDI does have some good purposes, with that caveat that it comes out really, really easy, which is one of the worst things about it. Good MIDI DIN plugs, they stick in well, don't they? But yeah, MIDI on quarter-inch jack just seems annoying. But that is a multi.
Isn't it?
Yeah, well, but the reason for it, I think, though, is that they are kind of they're using that socket, so it can also be a GPIO socket. So you could.
Yes, there is that. It's got Ethernet as well. So I'm just looking.
Yeah. So the Ethernet port on there is what's the format, Nick? You might
AES67, I think, is
AES67. So it can talk to it can handle high track counts much more than it's got an ADAT port on there as well. But the track counts.
DSP, 4 internal mixers with sophisticated EQ, dynamics processing, and reverb. That, when you consider running that across maybe the ADAT inputs and getting that additional processing, that's kind of interesting, because I'm guessing that might work standalone. So, I'm really interested in these ideas of sound devices that work as audio interfaces, but also have onboard stuff. That's why we use the pod. I mean, I keep banging on about the PodTrack P4. It's a recorder and an audio interface at the same time. That's really handy. And there was that Relic thing that we looked at, which was a sort of box of I/O, which it has DSP for routing, but I was really hoping it might have a little bit of, EQ and whatnot, because then that would make it just like, it's just a box that you can make it do whatever you want. So this is, but yeah, it's expensive. It does look very nice, though, I have to say.
I mean, I think having aspirational things, it isn't such a bad thing, really.
Don't know what happened there.
You're going to be able to get your work done on this for sure, and it's expensive, but highly desirable.
Well, so I don't know what happened with the music coming in there. That was my first technical snafu of the day, though, so that's pretty good, and we're almost a half an hour in, so I mean, I don't really know what else to say. I think that's pretty good. Anyway, what I'll do is we'll just have another word from our friends over at iZotope. Thank you very much for their support. It's much appreciated. OZone 10 is the future of mastering. The new version includes Master Assistant, match your master to any reference file or files. Also, the stabilizer module in advanced adds clarity with intelligent and adaptive mastering EQ. Also included is the impact module in advanced, which enhances the rhythm by controlling microdynamics. Don't forget the code SONIC10 at iZotope.com/Sonictalk to save an additional 10% off any software purchase, not including subscriptions. And as I always say, if you go to that page, it'll give you this is the page that represents us on their website. We are very much appreciative of that. And that 10% is often applies, or it seems to apply at any point, even if there's already a sale. So well worth it if you're looking to save a bit of cash. Okay.
So just about that OZone 10 stabilizer, that is amazing. I'm completely sold on it. I've been doing quite a bunch.
Stabilizer. I should say what that does. What stabilizer module adds clarity and so like an adaptive EQ.
And like I've mentioned to you before, how that trick that I've always done in my mastering with dynamic EQ, just putting random nodes in there just to kind of essentially create lots of animation in the frequencies slightly. It does that, and it just does it so well. And like if you just do an A/B between your masters with that on and with it off, it's one of those things that when you engage it, it's not necessarily super obvious in the sound. It's not like you're getting a big treble.
It's more obvious when you turn it off.
When you turn it off, I've said these before. It's a FGSPIBO. That's the world's worst acronym, I think. Button, which is for goodness sake, put it back on button.
Okay, yeah, cool. Anyway, yes, we very much do appreciate the support, and it's it's clear that we use their stuff. In fact, the sound of Neutron is the sound of this podcast. No, actually, the sound of this podcast is in part due to Neutron, which is across the master bus on the way out. It's just very, very useful for that. Okay, right. What shall we get on to next? Let's take a look at the Logue. Well, should we do the Logue, and then maybe we'll do some questions, maybe if there are some coming in. Remember, QQ in the comments if you want a question for either myself or Gaz. Probably more likely Gaz, to be honest. Here we go. So this is a new universal controller, basically. It's on Kickstarter. It's essentially all those knobs and buttons have little LED displays that do look a bit, it says Logue. They actually look like the original Logue.
To regain that analog feeling while making music. It is a customizable MIDI controller that lets you create and edit any mapping for any instrument. With its screens, you can make your own layout and see what you are doing without having to break out of your creative flow.
Hey people on Kickstarter.
Yes, I have to say, not the greatest Kickstarter video I've ever seen, but the initial bit's really interesting, but it's quite an interesting idea. It's going to be about €5.95, and that you basically run the plugin with the plugin you want. And you just kind of go, I want this mapped here, this mapped here, this mapped here, this mapped here, and it becomes a universal controller. And each of those little displays has a kind of a window with a value and a slider. And I'm not sure whether those colors around the windows are fixed and screen printed, or whether you can change those, because that would actually be very useful for zoning, because it is essentially a matrix of boxes. I mean, a matrix of knobs. I mean, I've used, sometimes you use a synthesizer, a knobby synthesizer, shall we say. Like, you used to use the, what was the Sledge? Because it's got loads of knobs on it. You could use that as a MIDI controller. It had envelopes, so, most synths have got envelopes. So for that sort of thing, there's a kind of, quite an easy way to do this. This feels like a little bit, we're looking again for this sort of holy grail of universal controller that just works in any instance. And I don't know whether this is it or not, but it does look like quite a nice thing. Again, from the Netherlands, which is interesting. Not Utrecht this time, but still kind of off.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things that makes this look nice is it just looks like a very solid quality piece of gear.
Yeah.
A lot of MIDI controllers tend to not have that premium sort of side of things. I think it'll automatically map stuff, and like if you use Ableton Live, I think Ableton Live, is maybe one of its real main targets. I think, and this idea then, because there's little mini screens above every knob, then that you can turn away from the screen or turn your screen off and really focus on things using the knobs. Yeah, it looks really good. I think it seems to be priced kind of fairly. I'm always a little bit worried with things like this, that maybe Kickstarter is just the amount of ongoing support and updates, and it being able to be supported for, it looks like it's like a unit for the ages. It's so beautifully made. So, it really needs to have that software support, the longevity of software support as well, which is always slightly worrying with Kickstarter type products because of, that side of things. Now, I mean, I don't really know anything about that, so I can't really say, but I've used, this thing. I've shown this a few times.
That looks interesting.
Yeah,
that does look,
and it's this.
I noticed it's not plugged in or switched on though. How useful is it?
No, that's a good point. No, because it's actually, I'm repurposing it at the moment. But I've used it for a bunch of things. As he wipes the dust off the screen, the Electra one.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Don was really keen on that, wasn't he? He thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, he was.
And Robbie as well.
Yeah, it's really good. And that's got a combination essentially similar in as much as it's got knobs and in this case, one big screen, but the screen and the knobs kind of work together. However, the thing that's sort of not frustrating, but what I tend to find that I try all these different controllers out, but typically just go back to using the mouse and
it's the setup, isn't it? Because it's never set up in the way you want, and so before you start using it, you have to go, oh well, just map this up, and then you've sort of lost it.
I think they're trying to say with this one, it'll auto map, and if you
Yes, it will. Well, it doesn't auto map. As Wagyu said, this is a very apposite comment. Wagyu said this is the one with the dubious claim and enter MIDI mapping, and they have a tutorial video saying how to MIDI map, which I think is a fair point. What it does is you have a plugin and you have to click, and auto mapping. What that does is just basically auto next. So you go this one, this one, this one, and it just goes through. So it saves a few mouse clicks. So it's not like MIDI 2.0 where it goes, okay, what you got? Okay, here's what you can give you. It's not that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, when I first saw this, I was hoping that it was going to be a MIDI 2.0 device. I couldn't see anything about MIDI 2.0, and it still feels that people are reticent to embrace it. But yeah. But again, I can imagine if you had specific ideas in mind for it, it looks like maybe the best thing out there for certain roles. Although I was also thinking that the Behringer BCR 2000, that's coming.
That's
back,
even worse. Is it?
Well,
I mean, what they need for that is software, because if it's got, I mean, any MIDI controller, this is the thing that you find. And we've been around this cycle. We've had auto map, we've had all of these other things. And what happens is everybody goes, this will solve the problem. And then it sort of does, but still there's quite a lot of IT going on. And you still then have to stop and map it up and figure out whether it's saved with the template, saved with the song, saved with the patch. And then it's sort of like, it's never quite exactly what you want. It's always nearly what you want. Unless you, I mean, whereas for me, you know, I built an interface in MIDI Designer Touch or MIDI Designer. I can't remember what it was on the iPad. I've still got an original iPad 1 over there that is running the entire studio, which I still use. And I built an interface, and I put a lot of time, and I haven't changed it for years. But now it works. It would be better if it was hardware, but it's not. But you still have to put the time in to get it to do what you want. And if you're constantly changing the way you do then you actually spend a lot of time fiddling around and reprogramming it and mapping and learning and all of those things, and then that's the thing that's the problem. But I don't see how can it not be that, because it's essentially like, you know, if you're programming a set, you program a set, you put all the work in programming in the set, and then you tweak it during rehearsals, and then you use it like that for, I don't know, a world tour or the month or the, you know, whatever, a long time. So there's a sort of payback. You know, you're not going to be, you don't want every gig to be going, you know what, I'm going to completely remap everything because I fancy forgetting all that muscle memory I put in. You know, but in the creative process, it's a very different, you have a different set of requirements, I suppose, is what I mean.
I mean, again, I think though, but some people will see this and they will, and I think it will really excite them. But I did notice though that the Kickstarter goal is quite
an all
high.
or nothing. It's 130
really
grand.
high.
Yeah, I was trying to load the page, but all it's giving me is this, which is a really weird page. It's like I have to do this, and I thought, oh, maybe this is a sort of capture, but it doesn't actually. Nothing happens, so I can't actually show you what that is. They're at 20 grand, and they've got 15 days to go. I think it closes on the. What does it say? So April 20th. It might be a bit tight for that.
Well, I do hope they do it though, because it does look. I mean, I think it. As I was mentioning, for some people, it's going to be almost like the answer to their dreams, I think, for some people. Again, I'm just, that's the fact that it's got a premium feeling, that side of it, I think, that bit.
And then,
gives it.
But then you go back to the Chompy Kickstarter. Did you see the thing which was the sort of funny little song? That's done $1 million. It's done $1 million quid. Yeah. $1 million quid. I mean, that is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they're probably looking at that going,
But the Chompy, I think the thing about the Chompy, which makes it really attractive, is just that all in one. It just is what it is, and it's and I think a lot of people have looked at that and just gone, oh, actually, I really want that immediacy. I want
it to be well. That actually supports my point, which is they don't want to mess around programming it up. MIDI learning, although we did talk about at the time, it was such a nice piece of hardware that if it could be repurposed to output sort of like Stream Deck type button control stuff or MIDI commands, that meant that you got the benefit of those nice hardware kind of clicky clacky buttons and the alpha control and stuff, and use it to control other things, it would just mean another use for it. But yeah, I don't know, I wish these guys luck, but I'm just not sure. I mean, looking at the numbers of that compared to Chompy, it does look like they might be a bit glum at the end of the month. But I hope, I mean, like you say, I hope it does happen.
Yeah, me too. Best of luck to them. And and I think they probably could do with better. You're right. I could do with a better video. Having a lot of people just going, "Wow," it isn't
well, and talking in a very roomy room with not any close mics. I mean, audio is everything. Absolutely everything, as we know, which is why we are quite happy to put out crappy video with great audio, because that works better than great video with crappy audio, you know. So anyway, well, maybe they'll learn and come back, or it'll just work. I don't know. I hope so. It'd be good if it did. Okay, well, I guess we could let me see, we could do some questions. I'm just not sure what I've got, because there's here we go. Let's just try this one. What are your in-ear monitors and what would you recommend? I'll do that because I can. So this is a question from the chat. This is from Synkrotron via YouTube. What are your in-ear monitors? Yes, there are these things, which are actually really cheap. Off Amazon. They're just basically, if you just look for in-ear monitors on Amazon, they're about 20 quid, and you can buy these are 3-driver or 2-driver ones, and you can get 5-driver ones. I think Ty bought the more expensive one. They're just Chinese kind of knockoff things, but the things to look for, I think if I bring it, I might be able to make this work, is they've got this control, so you have this. So they've got this little sort of snap-on, and because they're affordable, I've got several pairs now. Oh no, I can't see it properly to plug it back in. I use them for shows. So I've got me in-ears, and because they're kind of a good fit, they're kind of low profile, and also they block out a certain amount of sound, but they're really not very expensive at all. You can spend a lot of money on these things. They're surprisingly good, I suppose. I don't know if have you tried them? I don't know if you're an in-ear monitor kind of guy. Some people don't get on with them.
I've used all sorts for in-ears over the years, including Westone ones, which I had specially fitted, which had 5 drivers in them, and they were like really good. But you know, you've got to kind of, with those things, you get a little tool, and you've got to pick the earwax out carefully.
Oh yeah, yes.
And what I did was I accidentally
didn't do it carefully,
and I poked the earwax down, and they've never been quite the same, because I think the earwax has
much like your ears when you do that. But that's the other thing, putting these in your ears constantly, you end up doing the same in reverse, and you end up blocking out, and
I had an awful thing happen to me on a show that I was working on during the rehearsals, and that was an in-ear show, and I was using these ones, Timotic, or I can't remember, something like that they're called. And because I was teching on the show as well, I was having to take them out a lot to listen to when people coming up asking me questions. And I took one out, and it left the foam in the ear canal. I had to have the nurse come and, you know, under light, and have them remove and that had got stuck in my ear canal, and that was really worrying. And so you do have to be very careful with those kind of things. And also, something I would absolutely recommend hugely is having the control for the volume on you on a belt pack or something.
Yeah.
And I've done shows where you haven't got control over that, and it's horrible. It feels horrible.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose I don't think I suppose these would work as in-ears. I mean, they're just called in-ear monitors, but they're just headphones that are useful for streaming because they're low profile and they're just tiny. They're not very expensive and they've got good volume and quite a decent range. I mean, I don't know if I'd want to use in-ear monitors live. I think it takes quite a lot of getting used to, doesn't it? Because you have to you're basically you need someone who's going to be able to do that monitor mix, and you trust them not to blow your head off.
Oh yeah, it is. However, you do get that huge advantage then of like the rehearsal and then the gig. Everything's you get you can get your mix exactly the same, but of course you need to have audience microphones. I've done shows without that.
Oh yes,
horrible.
Of course.
It really is horrible if you're
just disconnected.
Everyone's clapping and it's just weird, but yeah, it's a strange one. When I did the Carl Hyde Underworld thing, I was just using big over-the-ear headphones, much like this, rather than having the little in-ear ones. And I know it was great. I was really happy. But yeah, it's a funny one. It is a funny one. But of course, do you remember? Not that I particularly want to remember it. The one time I used my posh in-ears on the show was the time when I.
You couldn't hear anything.
I kind of pulled on a mic stand and it smashed the sledge, and everyone else heard it, but I didn't.
Well, there is that. That's
just fully blocked out all the outside sound.
Well, I was going to say that I could show you the link, but I've just tried to look it up on Amazon for the ones that I've got, and now my browser's crashed, which is a bit of a problem because I'm actually using the browser to run the show. So if I quit my browser because the page has become unresponsive, then I might actually end up in a situation where we have to abort the show, which I don't really want to do. Obviously, that would be bad, but I can still run some more questions. So maybe we'll do another question or two, assuming, oh, you swine. No, everything is gone. That is really, that's not so good, is it? I suppose what I could do is I could just go, you know what, I'm going to quit while I'm ahead, because if I relaunch the browser, that means I have to reconnect. And I'd just like to point out this technical issue is not my fault. It's Chrome has just decided to go crazy.
You did mention at the top of the show about the sad passing of Ryuichi Sakamoto. And that kind of comes quite soon after we lost Yukihiro Takahashi as well, another member of the Yellow Magic Orchestra. And this has been really sad for me because I'd, in recent times, just become really a bit obsessed with Yellow Magic Orchestra. And, I'd been aware of them for ages, but not really delved that deeply into them. And the album, the 1979 album, Solid State Survivor, which was hugely influential on a lot of the hip hop, emerging hip hop, Mantronics, and
I need to check it out. I'm really, really not all that familiar with it. I need to go and do some excavating.
I think the thing about that, and that album in particular, and of course this absolutely relates to how amazing Ryuichi Sakamoto was it feels like Japan was really there was a confidence in Japan, I think, that following, there was a lot of humiliation after the Second World War, and things in the 1960s made in Japan was synonymous with cheap and low quality. But that absolutely changed, didn't it, throughout the 1970s?
Mostly due to Sony, really, wasn't it? At the time, Sony became this kind of super mega brand with all the best stuff,
Best stuff. And certainly by the 1980s, Japanese products totally dominated music technology, for instance. But I also feel that confidence filtered into music, and none more so than with Yellow Magic Orchestra. And that album, Solid State Survivor, it's just bristling with this incredible, optimistic, powerful energy, positive energy. And it just jumps out the speakers. It's just and wow, and proved
I'll
to
have
be.
to check it out.
Yeah, and well, I did. They were like maybe the biggest Japanese band. Well, I don't know internationally. I don't know if the sales
maybe.
but just in terms of influence is huge. And of course, obviously, Ryuichi went on and had many successes in all the other fields in which he worked in. But I think specifically that point in time, 1979, I think is a really interesting era. And I think Solid State Survivor is possibly the crowning achievement of that time. Some great concerts as well that you can watch on YouTube of the band from around that time as well. And still really exciting. I found it really exciting to watch them. But yeah,
I'm gonna have to go and do that. I need to spend some time on that. I think I need to do that. For me, I really became aware of his stuff. I think it was more when he collaborated with David Sylvian in Japan.
Yeah,
Bambi Music, just like beautiful. I think I actually think I might play that at my funeral. Specify that when I finally need to. And then of course, Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, and the music for Sheltering Sky, and that just loads of great sound. But he was a really good pianist. That's the thing, and I didn't really know this. I mean, he was a very accomplished, and the Revenant as well, didn't he? Did the music, a lot of the music for that. Yeah, I mean, just really good at capturing the right emotion, and across a wide range of disciplines. Music, classical music, piano music, electronic music, all sorts of stuff. And he was just so go and listen to some Ryuichi Sakamoto. In fact, that's my homework. I'm going to go and listen to some of the Yellow Magic Orchestra. So I will check that. Solid State Survivor. Okay,
that's a good place to start as any, I think. Yeah,
nice. Okay, well, I think I'm going to quit because I will have to completely restart the show, and I think as we've got to 5 o'clock, I won't do that, and I'm sorry if I didn't get around to any more questions. There will be no show next week because I'm going to be in Anaheim. We're going to be doing the NAMM show, and I'm not taking all enough kit because it's become so expensive to fly now. Even just take that you used to get a carrier, you used to get a checked piece of luggage when you flew transatlantic. Not anymore. You have to pay an additional £100 a ticket to take a suitcase. So I'm trying to travel light, just enough to be able to get, which is one of the advantages of the streamlined rigs that we've got. It means that we can probably do it all in carry-on, which is good, and have clean clothes, which is no mean feat. So Gaz, thank you so much for joining us. So you're going to do a stream tonight, right?
Yes, I am. I wasn't planning to, but I think it's I think I should. So yes, I will. And I'm just trying to decide what I'm going to make this show on. I'll try and avoid Eurorack. I know what I'm going to cover. If anyone is interested, I've recently got hold of a Boss GT1000 Core, which is a multi-effects pedal aimed at guitarists. But as I've discovered, it is a really good multi-purpose digital effects unit for more than that, actually. You can use it because it's got like two stereo, it's got a stereo in and stereo out, but it's got two independent send and returns, but you can actually use that as a stereo send and return. Now, there's not many things that will allow you to do that, to send out in stereo, return stereo, in a small pedal format. As a live kind of hub for like a synth or keyboard rig, it's really good. And also one of the things that makes it really, really good is when you go into the input settings, you've got 8 presets for different instruments. Now, I've got lots of different guitars, passive ones and active ones, which have got widely different outputs. And what's really good is you can set you can set a global input, and it gives you a little VU meter. Now, most things don't. Most things you just don't know what it's what it's seeing. So and then you can name 8. So I've been going through some of my different basses, some of my passive ones and some of my active ones, and creating. Well, I think I've only just done it. I've only done it once, so at the moment, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work through my different instruments, so I can use it with my different instruments, and then only, and then you just go in and just choose which input you're using. So if you wanted to have something that you could use for multiple purposes, then this is really good. So I'm going to explore whether I can put really hot line level stuff in, and whether I can then
save it as a preset.
Well, yeah. Which you can, and just so I had a bit of a light bulb moment going, this is actually a really good digital hub, as I say. I had the Eventide H90 here. Possibly it was meant to be for reviewing, but I didn't get on with it. Great sounding thing, but I felt that they missed a trick with how the routing works. It's got some kind of interesting routing that you can do, but actually this Boss GT1000 actually is a I would say it's maybe, I mean, obviously it doesn't have those Eventide algorithms, which is the main selling point after all, but just in terms of something that is a really powerful way of keeping your and what you can also do is you can store that in you can store a preset with the input to be global, or you can store
per
a preset. Per preset.
Yes, that's handy. Yeah.
See what I mean? So
yeah, we'll nice. Okay, guys. Well, I'm sure that people will be fascinated by that. So thank you very much for letting us know. You'll be on later. But that's it for this week. Well, I usually go here, but it's going to be a bit weird because there's only two of us. But anyway, I do hope everybody has a good week. Like I say, we'll be back, I guess, the week of the 15th. Post NAMM. So if you've got any thing you want us to check out at NAMM, do let us know. We'll do all the usual stuff. There'll be the live blog, there'll be all the usual things that we do, and hopefully we'll be getting that stuff out to you as soon as we possibly can. Anyway, that's it for this week. Thank you very much. We'll see you on the other side of NAMM. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.